Alrighty team, it is a very exciting day because as you can see we have been sent a package. This package contains a Cricut Explore 3, which I am very eager to get into. We're going to see how we can use it for our bullet journals. I don't know how you work, but I'm eager to find out. Admittedly, this is not my ideal location for you. One day I hope that you will live in this corner on your own little desk and be totally gorgeous, but for now we're just going to set you up over here because that desk doesn't exist yet. Here we go. We got some pretty nifty features. Cuts 100 plus materials. Works with 5 tools. Up to 2 times faster. Well, it's good to know it's faster. Boom, progress. We are getting there. So it can cut, draw, and score, which is cool. No cutting mats to prep. Alrighty, because the only time I've ever seen a Cricut used, they used a cutting mat, so that's kind of exciting too. Be gone, tape. Ha. Aww, I like that. I think we're just gonna get everything out of the box and then look through things one by one, like we usually do. Here we go. So we have all of our bits and pieces. We've got the actual Cricut itself, cutting mat, and then these like smart supplies, which are really exciting. I mean, the transfer tape is just transfer tape, but the smart supplies feed directly into the machine rather than having to put them on the cutting mat, which I just think is amazing. We've also got our tools, some pens. Let's get into it. Oh yeah! For our project today, as promised, we are making journal tabs. So we're going to be using this smart cardstock, which I just love the idea that it feeds directly into the machine. I've never had to set up one of the cutting mats before, but I find it intimidating. This will be much easier. Let's jump into the design space though and set our tabs up. So jumping into the Cricut design space, this is what we're met with, and we just want to make a new project. So press on new project. In terms of our tabs, we want to have 2 separate pieces that can kind of fold together so that then we have like the front of the tab and the back of the tab. So we're going to need to put in some shapes. I personally prefer to have rounded edges on my tabs. So I'm going to use this rounded edge rectangle. And the nice part is that it tells you exactly the dimensions of it. That is super helpful. I think that we're going to make mine 3 wide by 2 tall, and I'm working in centimeters. This does look quite small at the moment, so we will just zoom in so it's nice and easy to actually see what we're working with. So that will be one side of the tab, and then I'm just going to copy and then paste that image to make the other side of the tab. Now, what I want this to do is I actually want them to be merged together so that they cut together, so I can stick one side of the tab onto one page and then fold it over to the other side of the page and stick them together. Which means I'm going to need to bring these, first of all, a lot closer to each other, and then also make sure that they are going to be cut together. Moving those towards each other. You can see that obviously I have a really good range of motion here. I want to make sure that these are aligned properly. So I'm going to highlight both of them and then using the little align tool up here, go center horizontally so that they're actually stacked properly on top of each other. I don't have like some kind of weird cut going on. As we can see though, we do still have a gap there. So I'm just going to take the top one and using my arrow key, move it down slowly until it gets to a position that I'm happy with. That looks good. So as it stands, we have those 2 shapes together. I want to keep them together though. So I'm going to highlight both of those and come down to the combine tool here. You can either press unite or weld. So we'll press weld. So we now have that one shape which can be treated as an individual object. You can see we don't have any cut lines going through the middle. We don't want cut lines going through the middle, so this looks good. In terms of the tabs though, it's all good and well to have the shape cut out, but I also want to put some labels on them because, like, I could write them in myself, let's be honest, but I could use my Cricut to do it, so why not? So for that, I'm just going to press on our text tool to bring in a text box, and I'm going to use these for January, February, etc. So we will type in Jan. Obviously at the moment it's a little big. I don't really need one that's quite this large. So we are going to make it smaller, and we can either just reposition it by dragging the corner in and out, or we can use the size tool at the top, which is what I'm going to use because it's just easier. So the width of my little tab was 3 centimeters. So I'm going to make this 2.8 centimeters because then it'll fit nicely in the middle. And what's important to note here is that currently it says that it's going to cut that shape out. I don't want it to be cut out of the tab, I want it to draw on the tab. So we need to change the operation from basic cut to pen. That one's now going to draw in the outline of the letters. Of course, you can change the fonts, you can use any of the fonts that are on your computer. I'm just going to use Cricut Sans because it's a nice enough font. Dragging this up though, I want to position it so that it's close to the middle of my tab. I want it to be central in terms of like horizontal alignment at the very least, but I don't want it to be too close to the bottom or to the outside of the tab. Kind of closer to where that fold is. That's because the fold is going to be sitting on the outside of the journal, whereas the top and bottom edges are actually going to be inside the journal. And I want to be able to see my label when the journal's closed. So bringing that roughly here, looks pretty good. And then we can just highlight both of those shapes and again use the align tool to horizontally align it so it's actually centered. So it's all good and well to have a label on one side of the tab, but I want it on the other side as well. And I want those to be read in the same direction. So we can press on our text, do a copy and a paste. I could leave it like this, but I actually prefer for the tops of my letters to face away from the journal. So for instance, if this is my notebook and I've got a tab sticking out, let's just pretend it's a tab. I want the tops of my letters to be along this top edge rather than along the bottom edge. In both cases. So what I'm gonna have to do with my text in Cricut is actually flip it. We could use the flip tool here, so you can flip it horizontally or vertically. I'm gonna do that nice and easy. Or you can also use the rotate tool just by bringing your cursor close to the corner and get that kind of little U-shaped arrow. You can use that as well. We're gonna wanna position it in terms of its alignment, so making sure it's center aligned, looking cute. And we also want it a pretty similar distance away from where that fold is going to be. So I'm just going to zoom in a little bit more so that I can really see where that one's going to end up. So I want it a little further away. Take the entire design and put it on this line here to make it a little bit easier. And with that flip, we will also have to flip it horizontally. I just checked that, I'm like, wait a second, those letters are backwards. That would have been unfortunate. So now the nice part is we can read it from this direction, or we can turn the whole thing and read it from the other direction too. Just put it back where it was though. So that is for January, but thankfully we don't have to do that process over again for the subsequent months. We can just copy that design, paste it, drag it to be next to the one we originally set up, and then just relabel it. So instead of January, we want February in both cases. And we just need to make sure that we realign those so that they are central, but the nice part is they haven't moved vertically, so they've stayed in the same place. I don't have to try and realign them in terms of that. Now we just need to do that process a couple of more times so that we can have the full year. As I went through, I did have to adjust how much space the lettering was taking up in terms of the lettering size, just because some of the months, in particular the ones with M's, are a little bit wider because M is just a wider letter. So once I'd copied all those out, I just went and resized all the text and then aligned it properly so they were all central. Now as we've got all of the little tabs set up though, we need to make sure that we attach the text to the tab so that then it draws into the space that will then get cut out as the tab. That was poorly explained, hopefully it makes sense. To do this though, we just need to select each of those little tabs individually and then press on the attach button down the bottom, or as it says, you can press Alt-A. Those are looking cute and they're ready to go now to actually do the project. Now we just need to press on the Make It button, and that'll bring us to this menu, which asks us what kind of materials we'll be loading into the machine. I am going to be using the Without a Mat option. So exciting. I like the idea of not having to load a mat. I know I've gone on about it a couple of times. I'm just very excited about it because having to load mats is probably the thing that's kept me from using the Cricut. So this is an exciting development. So without a mat, confirm. So we can press on continue and this is going to send it to our machine. To prep the machine though, we do of course need to put the pen into it so it can actually draw things. And we'll also need to load in our cardstock. I didn't realize, but this one's actually a sticker-backed cardstock, which is going to be so much easier for the whole tab making thing, because then I don't have to put tape on it. Once it's connected to your device, it asks you what type of material you're going to be using, because it'll use this to determine how much pressure it needs to apply to cut things out. It also gives you helpful instructions of how to load the materials into your machine, which I found very helpful because this is my first time using one. And then it's time to press go. The Cricut started by drawing out all of our little labels and then went in with the cutting tool. Because it is writing with a gel pen, do be aware that this is inky and you don't want to smudge it, so make sure that you let it fully dry before running your finger or anything else over your tabs. I was actually really impressed with how fast it cut. I have no idea how fast the last one cut, but considering the fact that this one's 2 times faster, I'm just like, wow. We now have our cute little tabs drawn out and cut out, so all we need to do is attach them into our journal. Because we have that extra space on the ends, that's the part that gets stuck into the journal, so we just line that up with the dot grid, and then fold along that middle section to attach it on the back side. As I mentioned before, very impressed that this is sticker cardstock, so I didn't have to attach any glue, which was such a time saver. Very cute. If I were to do them over again, I'd probably make them a little bit smaller. They're a little bit big for my liking. But hey, as a first attempt of a Cricut project, I'm pretty chuffed. Proof of concept, certainly there. If you wanted to make your own bullet journal tabs, I do have the file I used to make these ones in the description box, so check that out, along with links to all of the materials that I used as well. You and I are going to do so many cool things together. If the idea of tabs in your bullet journal is of interest to you, then the video at the top is what you should check out next. Otherwise, if you just want more bullet journal ideas, the playlist at the bottom is where it's at. I'll see you over there.